to order. It is August 21st, 2024, and the time is 6:37 p.m. Our mission is to provide a safe and caring climate and culture in which we engage, inspire, educate, prepare, and empower all learners in partnership with their surrounding community to be successful in today's and tomorrow's society. Zach, can you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and then can you please call roll?
The following board members are present at the District Administration Office. Natalie Copeland.
Here.
Al Dahlgren. Here. Zach Dorholt is here. Shannon Haas.
Here.
Heather Weems.
Here.
And the following board members are remote. Monica Shigeru-Schwartz. She's here, remote. And board member Andresen is not present tonight. Happy birthday, Mr. Andresen. And the following cabinet members and staff are present at the District Administration Office. Superintendent Dr. Lori Putnam, Assistant Superintendent of Secondary Education Dr. Jason Harris, Assistant Superintendent of Pre-K through Grade 5 Education Nikki Hansen, Assistant Superintendent of E12 Student Services Shannon Abenson, Executive Director of Community Education Adam Holm, Executive Director of Finance and Business Services Amy Scholarud, Executive Director of Operations Joel Heidkamp, Executive Director of Special Projects Gary Ganji, Executive Director of Research, Enrollment, and Assessments, Don Roper, Director of Community Engagement and Communications, Tammy DeLand, Media Technicians, Paul Novak and Gordy Scott, and the custodian on site is Aiden Onsher.
Thank you, Zach. Then we need to approve tonight's meeting agenda. So I'm looking for a motion to approve the Board of Education meeting agenda for tonight.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Weems and a second by Ms. Copeland. Zach, can you call vote again?
Shannon Haas,
Yes.
Zach Dorholtz, a yes. Al Dahlgren,
Yes.
Natalie Copeland.
Yes.
Heather Weems.
Yes.
Monica Shigeru-Schwartz.
Okay, then we have the consent agenda. The consent agenda consists of non-controversial items that the board adopts routinely without debate. Any single member may remove an item from the consent agenda by requesting removal at the time the consent agenda is moved for adoption. On tonight's consent agenda, item A, approval of minutes from July 17th, 2024. Item B, approval of bills and other financial transactions in the grand total amount of $8,576,093.23. Item C, approval of personnel staff changes. Item D, acceptance of grant awards and donations. Item E, McKinley addition and renovation project change orders totaling $30,233.46. Item F, Apollo LTFM change orders totaling $26,778.99. Item G, Apollo parking lot change orders totaling $21,517.50. Item H, sale of surplus and obsolete equipment. Item I, revised quarterly expenditures for board members. And item J, approval of resolution calling for the school district general election. At this time, does any board member wish to remove an item from the consent agenda? Okay, then I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda as read.
So moved.
And do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion by Natalie and a second by Al. Zach, can you call vote again?
Al Dahlgren,
Yes.
Zach Dorholtz, yes. Shannon Haas.
Yes.
Heather Weems.
Yes.
Monica Shigeru-Schwartz.
Yes.
Natalie Copeland.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to our one informational item tonight. It is the safety and belonging in schools through building relationships and partnerships with SROs. We have Joel Heitkamp, Executive Director of Operations, presenting, and will be introducing his team here tonight.
Good evening, Chair Hawes, Superintendent Putnam, and members of the board.
I'm excited to introduce our two guests here this evening. Next to me, I have Sergeant Greg Kleinfelter, and then next to him is Commander Marty Sayer. And we're here to give an update on our School Resource Officer Program. And we titled this presentation, Safety and Belonging in Schools Through Relationships and Partnerships. And that really is how it is going to hopefully feel to all of you in how we work through our every day in our schools and the partnership that we have with our local police department. We began this evening just highlighting side by side the mission statements, both of the school district and of the police department, and wanted to just call out the similarities that are there as well. Both of them having values around caring, around partnership, and specifically supporting our communities as a school district, supporting our school communities, and as the police department supporting the entire St. Cloud community. We do that in a variety of ways, and I think you're going to be astounded in all the ways that they're going to highlight here this evening, but really centered on some guiding principles of being student-centered, having strong communication, both the school district with the PD and the PD with the school district, high levels of trust throughout all of the work that we do, and then also having very clearly defined roles in what a school district employee or how a school is going to support students and how a school resource officer may support either the school or their students. Officer Kleinfelter.
All right. So our current school resource officer team, you can see, is our division is a community engagement division that's commanded by Commander Sayer. I specifically am a sergeant within the community engagement division, specifically in charge of the SROs. Again, my name is Greg Kleinfelter, and then we have 6 SROs that are in our organization. You can see the names up there and the positions afterwards. So like Officer Ben Eckberg, he floats and covers at all the schools. And then the way the schools obviously work is they're assigned to a primary school, which would either be a high school, junior high, or KJ, and then they all get assigned elementary schools as their secondary school. We have multiple roles within our programs. We look at ourselves as educators, emergency managers. We obviously do safety, and we do safety first and foremost and prioritize that. But we also work strongly with mentors. The pictures that you see there are from our Skyla camp. We did not climb the ropes because we just didn't. It was the adults that didn't want to do it. But the kids were all ready to go up. There was big ropes and across, but we decided not to. As educators, so we'll break down a little bit of that last slide. So as educators, we do, and all of the 6th graders within the whole district, at least in St. Cloud proper, they get taught keys by their junior high. It would be either Officer Larson or Officer Lester this year. Lester will be over at North. So, and it's knowledge and education for youth success. It just talks, it's done over a group, many days in smaller groups, but they get to teach, we teach about drugs, alcohol, cyberbullying, all kinds of other social media stuff. So all 6th graders in the district get that. And then in the middle school, our SROs get approached all the time by different teachers. They'll just come to them and say, hey, do you have time? Can you work in this class for this hour? Can you come and I'm hearing this issue with some of the students in my class. Can you come and just talk about this? So there's a lot of random educating that goes on. And most of that stuff revolves around the alcohol, tobacco, and social media stuff, mostly social media stuff. Good. We talk with the high school. The same thing that happens in the middle schools happens at the high schools. And just a little, they just have much higher level conversations. They talk about current issues. We've done in the past, supported the district as they've taught some intro to law enforcement courses. There's some exciting news that I'll talk about a little bit later with that. So we've done work with them. Also in the high schools, we have a prize group, which you can see what it's promoting resilient youth and through support and education. Basically, that group is a group of kids that somehow, some way in their lives have been affected by incarceration. So we get this group together, and we do a lot of we have a lot of presenters that come in and talk about being able to do self-care and social, emotional healing. And we try to create an environment which is safe for them to be vulnerable and talk with other kids that are in similar situations. So that's a huge success. We continue to do like some higher level stuff around prom. We'll do mock crash. We just did a mock crash last year at Apollo High School. That was a big success. The kids, we wish we could have brought the helicopter in, but they wouldn't fly. We're dependent on Mother Nature for some of that. But the kids seemed to really like it. They had a lot of questions about it. And that revolves obviously around prom week and prom safety. And then, so what I told you before is previously we've helped with the teaching of law enforcement. It's like a 101 kind of an intro to law enforcement class. One of the things that we just have been able to solidify, and I'm pretty excited about, is that in partnership with Dr. Putnam and Commander Sayer, we've been given the permission to teach the class this year on our own. So we'll have, it'll be a partnership probably between myself, one of the other SROs, Officer Sherry, more than likely, and then one of our other commanders, Commander Ellering, who does a lot of other educating at secondary education sites, are going to actually put the curriculum together, work with you, and figure out how we can get that done. And we're going to have to do it in fairly short order, but we're super excited about it, and that'll start one class at Apollo and one class at Tech for the first try. So that'll get going here shortly. As emergency managers, the SROs do a lot of joint training. We train, I specifically, I think, am involved in a lot of conversations with the district, with input from our SROs. We just had a training out at Tech this last week where they talked about their evacuation and reunification planning, and they used the SROs to bounce ideas off and to get, sometimes I think the beauty of the partnership really becomes, you know, all the teachers and all of the administrators, they think alike, and we come in with a little bit different thought process that really benefits, I think, the planning. So that worked really good. We talk a lot about school safety procedures. Each of the SROs is constantly in conversations with their school administration and take advantage of all of that expertise. It works out. I just can't say how positively it works out. It's fantastic. So, and then I'm a part of, I guess we all are, but I'm specifically go to all the EPAC meetings, so we're involved there. Safety is kind of our bread and butter, right? That's what we do, and we hopefully do the best. There's site monitoring, we're just talking about, we're always there. We look for things that are out of place. We do whatever we can, we address things that are uncomfortable for us. We address things that are really good, but all with the vision of school safety, not physical safety, but also the safety of the students and the staff. Obviously, we do criminal investigations, medical emergency responses. We'll do some crisis intervention. We've worked really well with most of the crisis intervention we do as kind of a secondary thing to the school staff, because the school staff does a good job of that. And then we'll fill in sometimes, as we all know, there's certain situations where mental health crisis becomes potentially physical or dangerous, and that's where we can step in and help out. And our goal, if you don't get anything out of this, our goal, other than this is true, is our goal is we want to keep the students and the staff safe. And we want to have strong relationships with as many of the staff and especially of the students as we possibly can. And then we work with active threat preparation. We've done a lot of that lately. And so that gets done every year. So this is the fun stuff. When we talk about being mentors, this is what for our St. Cloud Police Department in our community engagement division. We'll talk a little bit about our cop houses and what our CRT division or our CRT group does. But for us and the school resource officers, we're in charge of our SCYLA program. If you don't know what that is, it's a St. Cloud Youth Leadership Academy. You can read kind of who's involved. It's boys and girls within the district, ages 13 to 16. I'll tell you, I can't tell you or explain to you any better than this. When I took this job, I've been working 4 years, I think 4 years as this job in this role. And when I came on board, I thought to myself, okay, SCYLA is going to be a necessary evil because we got to take 15 to 20 kids up to Camp Ripley for a week, and we're going to hang out with them all week. I'm going to be away from my family for an entire week, and people say it's going to be fun. I can tell you now, I've been up there many times, and it's the fundamentally most rewarding. Yeah, it's the thing that's affected my career by far the most is SCYLA. The relationships that you build. My wife always asks me, why do you keep going? And I'm like, it's easy. Because the relationships that I have with students, when I come back, we each get a moniker. So we give them all a moniker. One of them, a moniker. So they all come up with their given names, and they all leave with our names that we choose. So one of the young men and boys, SCYLA, was Slim Shady. One of the, I can't remember, I know one of the girls was Princess, and last year one of them was Ace. So we give them all nicknames. Well, over the course of time, they call me Grandpa Greg. So, and I don't know why, maybe my gray hair and that I'm fairly old. However, they call me Grandpa Greg. So but when I go to Tech or Apollo, these kids are there, and I'll walk in there. It's my favorite thing to do in school year. I'll walk down and I'll go into the commons, and all I hear is Grandpa Greg, Grandpa Greg, Grandpa Greg, and I'll turn around and you'll literally have 2 or 3 of the students come up. They're hugging me, they're giving me 5, they're dabbing me up, whatever it is, and they all want to have conversations and about what am I doing, how's my family, they want to tell me about their families. It's very honestly the most rewarding thing. So if you want to know more about SCYLA, you can reach out to me and I can talk about SCYLA for hours. So these are the graduates from this year. The girls are on the top, and then the boys. So what we do for our program is they come with socks and underwear and nothing else, and we provide them all the clothes for the week. We provide them all the food for the week. One of the boys we called Skittles because he tried to sneak like a 1-pound bag of Skittles on the bus, and we wouldn't let him. So with that, these are the 2 graduating classes this year. We're super proud of those guys and girls. Our SROs, through that level of trust, it's amazing that they get approached all the time about them going through difficult times. Some things are criminal, some things aren't. Some things are just, hey, I can't deal with this at home right now. And some things have to be addressed at a school level, and other things, they just want to talk. So it's an amazing relationship that we are able to build. The other thing that we can do is we have access to pretty good outside community resources. So if that makes sense for them at the time, those decisions kind of get made within the partnership of the school staff and us. And I think there's a lot of exciting things coming down the pipe with this as it relates to the community schools project and stuff. So this is an exciting spot. And the bottom one is what we do. That's our goal. That's our one goal. I'll talk briefly about so SROs are just part of our community engagement division. So within that division, there's our CCIT team and our CRT team. I'll let our commander talk about that. One of the things that we do a lot of work with is, I think a lot of you are familiar with the Cop House. We have a current Cop House on the south side right by Haas Park. That's been operational for a few years now, and we've seen just huge growth in all the students. And the district does have an office space in that cop house. So there are future plans to expand it. We've talked about, you'll hear Commander explain a little bit more about the Salem House and the 1010 House. The North House is kind of conceptual, and it's going to play in with our community schools project. So I think when we started talking, I'm on the committee with the community schools project, and when we started to talk about that, I talked with Dr. Putnam a lot and just said, this sounds a lot like a cop house. And then I would talk with the commander, and so that's kind of how we got conceptually, is probably a North cop house kind of thing. So the other thing SROs do is this year is something new, is we partner with all the Boys and Girls Club, which is all of our students. And so the cop house on the south side, they were being able to functionally serve a lot of those kids, but we felt like, okay, we need to serve the kids also on the north side or on the east side. So we've done week-long PAL camps with them. So we go in Monday through Thursday, and we give them a lot of cool cop stuff, or play, and they get to see our cool cop stuff. But then it's awesome. We play kickball or wiffle ball, or, I mean, but this year now, we did a reading program, we did a spelling bee with them on the east side. So it's a lot of, our SROs get as much out of it as the kids do, so. Go ahead, the next, yep, so I'll let Commander Sayre explain.
All right, is this on?
It is.
Okay, in my defense, my phone was off, but I have one app that overrides it in the middle of the night. It does it at school board meetings as well, so I apologize. If it goes off again, it could, but anyway, this is basically, if you look at it, I realize it's very small. Our division, we're probably one of the only departments that has a community engagement actual division of people, and it originally started with the cop house. And you can see that's called the CRT team. That's a community response team. That also included our community crime impact team, our HRA officers. As soon as I got the position, that's what it looked like. I asked, hey, I think the SROs should be in our group. I want to expand the size of our division to an actual division size. So we've got about 21 sworn officers in the division now. We also have the Violent Offender Task Force. You may wonder, why is that in a community engaged division? I always tell people we have to engage the community, and it's all levels of the community. And watching all these people interact, our CRT team can be dealing with people, out fishing and with the hockey or soccer camp. And then the next day they're in another community trying to find somebody that was an offender against somebody in our community. So having that blend within the division really is how we sit now. And with the school resource officers, you can see there's the 6. We're always, to me, I always want to expand even more. But part of our big goal and the chief's goal is, how do we get some of these kids from the school district from a young age to look into law enforcement, look into the fire profession, look into EMS, and part of that is really what we're trying to do. We have a lot of officers that are from outside of this city. They know nothing about it when they come here. There's a lot that started out here. A lot of our cops all went to St. Cloud State, and have had a lot of exposure to it. So that's kind of what we're trying to do in the big picture. We go to the next slide. So some of this is concept, some of this is reality, and I guess I'd call it our goals. But we have one legacy cop house right now. That's in the south side. That's the yellow box. The green and the blue box up there. The greenhouse is the Salem House, which is it's a cop house with a concept that's going to work with our mental health response teams. It's more medical, community focused, much different of a cop house than we'd think of. No cop house is the same, and that's kind of the rule nationally. But the blue box down there is the 1010 park. And that is going to be very similar to the Legacy Cop House. So we're going to split the team. We have office space for the school district if they want to be partners in that. We're breaking ground on that in the next couple of weeks. So both the Salem and the 1010 Cop Houses, we're looking at spring for a grand opening for both. But that whole park is there, the referendum for the parks, that's one of the parks that's affected. So is Haas Park, where the Legacy Cop House is. So the amount of fiscal contributions to those parks and its closeness to Talahi especially is of great interest, I would think, to 742. The red box indicates more of the concept or a goal of how do we create yet a different version of our cop house, and how do we staff it? And that's my challenge. Is I'm gonna staff the Legacy and the 1010 Cop House through our CRT program. My community crime impact team with the mental health co-responders are going to staff the Salem House, and I'm looking at our SROs to be the primary staff that are going to work out of the north in the future. So that's kind of our big picture. And finally, this just kind of just a slide on our what we do as a division as a whole and our goals altogether of what we accomplish within our division.
All right, back to me. So one of the I think unique things that we're a part of, our police department, and then ends up being one of our Janelle Haas, one of our SROs, and myself partner with those people on there, and it's so the concept of a CAT team came across our plate many years ago, and we did it on the adult side. It was an adult, basically a multi collaborative effort between a bunch of different groups to try to reduce the number of trips to the hospital or trips to detox on the adult side, trips to all, lower the law enforcement resource drain, but at the same time giving these adults different paths to success. That was really super successful for us. So we're a while back, we were like, let's do it on the juvenile side. So we're like, can we do it on the juvenile side? So we got those partners together. We had a lot of conversations. We had strong commitment from the school district. We had strong commitment from Stearns County. And what we quickly realized, though, was it's not nearly, it's going to take a lot more effort than the adult side, because the adult side, they get to fend for themselves, right? If you have a chronic inebriate male that has a problem, then we can put him down a certain path and he does it all himself. But when we start dealing on the juvenile side, it becomes a family issue. And all of a sudden the resources then, within weeks quickly, when we started to actually do the work, we were like, wait a minute, we can't affect these kids without affecting the families. I mean, it just doesn't work. So what the JCAT team does is we've taken a small, we try to keep a smaller group because it's so resource intensive, and we work with the parents. We provide whatever they really need, whether it's therapy, whether it's school help, whether it's clothing, potential housing, all of that stuff. The things that create barriers for these kids to do well in school that's not related to schoolwork is what we try to wrap around and help them with. So the JCAT team, we did just receive an award, or at least some recognition from some national groups on the efforts that we are doing there. So that's something that we're proud of, and you guys should be proud of too, because the district is the main driver of the intel on that. The district brings most of the intel to the game and gives us what we need to be able to help these families. So you all should be very, very proud of that.
With that, we're going to do this a little different than we normally do. Before we go on into our last topic, we wanted to just pause and allow for any specific questions around the SRO program, the impact, or the partnership that we have for that.
Heather?
Thank you for the work that you do. Can you talk a little bit about Away for the Day and the impact that you saw, particularly around cyberbullying last year as a result?
I'll speak to that first. From my perspective, being at South for so long, the Away for the Day was a game changer in the, maybe not specifically on the cyberbullying side, although we did hear a lot less of that, a lot less student conflict. I can remember my first handful of years as both an AP and a principal of the issues that would come to us as a leadership team at a building that would stem from the weekend and then carry on all throughout the day or at lunchtime when we finally got to see that person. We almost stopped it. Honestly, it was very, very little. The impact of students just being focused on school. Not to say we didn't have conflict that may have started outside of school, but the continuation of that conflict was, at least at South Junior High, right? I can't speak for any other school, but we felt it from day one.
And I will have to admit, I don't know much about it, so I'm not going to be able to speak articulately about how it affected us. I'm sure the SROs are all of them would know much more about it and how it affected each of their schools. But at my level, it honestly didn't get to me.
Second question. Can you talk a little bit about the difference between programming around alcohol and drug awareness at the junior high and the high school level, including approach to Narcan and the responsibility of students in taking care of one another, and what sort of rates do we see with drug and alcohol use within the schools?
I can talk. What I would say the difference in the programming is not, the ultimate message is the same. It's just how you deliver it, right? We're delivering a different style of message to the sixth graders than we would do to the high school kids. You speak more frankly to the high school kids. But very honestly, what I would tell you is that the goal of the messages is not incredibly different, because sixth graders need that same message, the same end message as the 12th graders do. It just needs to come in a different way so that they can absorb it. Does that make sense? I would say from our point of view, is there the rate of consumption or the rate of incidents involving drugs or alcohol in the schools is, I would say, relatively low. I mean, it happens. I always tell the district staff, we can't put our heads in the sand on this because it happens. It's there. But I wouldn't say it's at an astronomical rate. Do you know, Shannon, how much Narcan or what the uses of, or the number of uses of Narcan? I don't know. It's very little.
At most 2 times, I believe.
Yeah. So, but the drugs especially, I mean, the kids, you don't see the kids walking around trying to sip booze. The drugs are way easier to bring in and to use. I would say the challenges that we have related to what we teach has way more to do with social media than it has to do with the alcohol or drugs. Social media is the main driver of, I can argue all day with you, is the main driver of behavior is social media. As a father of 5, I could do without the internet. We don't need it. Let's just go back to like phone books and all of that. That would be fun.
I would say anecdotally, when talking to our counseling teams, we hear much more about kids' use outside of school, right? And the pressure to use in the community or at home when they're around their peers. And middle schoolers specifically, as my background, how to help them navigate that. But as far as in school goes, like Officer Kleinfelter said, quite small, more outside.
I agree. I think that I honestly believe the students find respite in the schools. They find the schools as a sanctuary of okay, I don't have to worry about that. I'm going to have conversations about that, and it's going to come up in my friend groups, and I'm going to have to and talk about it, or either go or not go, and either support them or not support them. But they don't have to make those decisions in school. They have to make those decisions outside of school, because I just don't think, I think many of them come to school and it's a safe place. Whether they all act like it all the time is probably not is not evident, but I truly believe that they find schools to be safe and their place of not having to worry about that stuff.
And then my last question, can you talk a little bit about how all of this is funding, including Skyla and your CATS program? Where does funding come from for the leadership? and
So
things?
the Skyla, one of the things and I'll pass it off to Commander Sayre in a second, but I do want to say this. Our department, so our division, within our division, all of the Skyla program, all of the PAL program, anything that the SROs do, including other things that cost a fair amount of money, like with our Skyla groups, now we do it the best that we can. Basically, in a nutshell, we take the Skyla groups, and it's kind of the conglomerate of kids, and then we'll pinwheel them into different groups that they like. We have a fishing crew, we have a Women of Worth group, we have a weightlifting crew, we have a hockey crew, and all of those kids now, it's so much easier to filter them from Skyla and then we pick up those that all of a sudden their Skyla kids are back at school, and their buddies or their friends are like, hey, wait a minute, I want to go sledding, or I want to get in the gym, or I want to go fishing, and it drives all of that. All of that on the SRO side is funded within our administration. We do have some COPS grants, or a grant from Walmart that supports us with $5,000 a year for Shop with a Cop and with some of our summer programming. But the rest of it, we have, I can't tell you enough about the commitment from our administration to these programs and to these kids. It's unbelievable.
And I can speak to the city of St. Cloud. They, each of these groups, SRO group has a line item, CRT has a budget. And I believe Chief Anderson started off with a youth engagement budget, which is really why I wanted Greg in my division. No, it's a decent sized budget for us to, you saw the clothing those kids were wearing when they went to Skyla. That was part of the original commitment that Chief Anderson wanted, that Chief Oxton is carrying forward. So we don't, that's a city commitment to what we're trying to do. I'd be remiss not to mention the Public Safety Foundation. They give Sergeant Ryan Sayre, who runs CRT, a pretty significant budget for youth programming to run primarily out of Haas Park and the Cop House itself. So those two things combined primarily fund, and we get a lot of donations. We're finding that when people find out what we're doing, like the DNR, for example, we got a $5,000 grant. They said, why didn't you ask for 25? Because this matches exactly what they're trying to do. We just had groups of kids up to the Boundary Water canoe areas for a week, boys and girls group separate. But our folks had to go up there and manage them up there in that environment, and give them experiences they probably would never have experienced in their life if they hadn't went with this group. So I got to give most of the credit to the city of St. Cloud just for funding a decent budget for us to move forward with it, and then the community partners that work with us, to include 742.
I'll give you a quick story about those suits that you saw the boys in. So when we were at Boys Skyla this year, we knew that they were getting suits. Well, one of the boys had an interview at Culver's the next day, on Friday when we came back. And we had told him, you're not gonna be able to go to your interview, but are you willing to go? I said, after. So we were able to get him in his suit. He graduated, and we were able. I called down to the manager at Culver's, and we negotiated the interview in the afternoon, so he was able to wear his brand new suit to the interview at Culver's. And from all I've heard is that he got the job. So I'm sure it was on his own merit, but the suit didn't help or hurt anything.
Natalie?
Yeah, thanks, Heather, for asking that question about funding. I'm just really grateful, number one, when you said schools are a respite for our students and they're safe places, that sometimes our community doesn't think that. And to hear that directly from the people who help us keep it safe is really wonderful and beautiful to hear from the commitment and the funding from the city and in our partnership. So thank you. I have a couple questions. One is kind of a major question and see what you say to it, but what, in your opinion, in working with our students, what do our students and families need most in our community? And I think from the juvenile CAT team, that might be where you see that, but what's the need out there right now?
In my opinion, for many years, I said the epidemic that we have nationally with students is not anything to do with students. It's a parenting epidemic. That's my pulpit answer. What the city and the children need is for us to rebuild, especially in our city. There's a strong population of kids in our city, and especially their parents that don't trust the cops. They don't trust the school. They have all kinds of challenges when it comes to being supportive of their children. And what they need is for us to do a really good job at what we're continuing to do at building relationships, but moreover, reach out and involve the parents. We are trying to get that done. The community schools project on the north side is going to get that done. That will involve all of the parents, it will involve all of the children, and I guarantee you once that rolls, you will see higher achievement and you will see much more success from those students. Because to me, the thing that lacks right now is we need to get the parents engaged. And I think it's an uphill battle because many of them don't trust us and many of them don't trust you. And I'm not saying that to dig on the school district because I just think it's the reality. And I think any work toward building that trust on both sides and really being strong communicators and bringing those voices in and letting them know that they matter on the parent side and how incredibly important they are to the success of their own children, it will go a long way. That's what I don't know that we're missing it. I just think we can never get enough of it. If that makes sense.
No, it does make sense as a parent of three and as, folks in the community, especially, I would say, single moms are like, I can't do it all, single dads, whatever. But so anything that we can do collaboratively, it can only help. Thank you. A couple more questions. One is, speaking of affected communities, we talk here about our disproportionately affected communities when it comes to suspensions. And that same group of folks, also we see that as being disproportionately affected by our law enforcement and our prisons as well. So we talk a lot about students of color and students on individual education plans. That's where we see the disproportionality in our suspensions. So can you talk a little bit about how you guys are involved in that? I know we are the ones that do the suspension, but then what are the parts in place that, try to prevent something like that happening that you guys do collaboratively? It might be more of a Joel question, but.
Yeah, I think that's one of the ways where that clear line is at, right? The SROs aren't a part of the discipline at school, right? That's all administration following student code of conduct. Where I think we intervene, I think where your question's going, where we intervene is, as principals and administrators, we see a lot in our students that sometimes others don't see, right? We see those leadership qualities, or we see that longing for love or caring from somebody, and that comes out in lots of different ways, and sometimes it comes out as behavior. And so from me speaking personally, it's seeing that quality in a student that needs to come out, and then partnering with the SROs, right, to get them a part of a Skyla program, right, getting them a regular check-in with Officer Larson at South Junior High, and really finding that way to pull out the things. There's a student in the picture that's a South student who sometimes struggled at school, right? And I got to go to his graduation, and I think he was shocked that I was there. I think he was shocked that other people would care enough to come watch him be a part of that. We also know Officer Larson pulled me to the side, and just a quick story, said he tried to quit on day one, right? After Sunday night, it was too hard for him, and he wanted to go home and see mom. And we saw that at school, right? We saw him avoid situations that were really, really hard. But through my communication with Officer Larson knew that was what he was going to see, right? And he knew that he was going to have to push a little bit to get him through that first night or that second day, and then he didn't want to go home, right? He was loving it, and so it's that partnership that really allows us to see things in students to get them into programs that are going to help them down the line.
Thanks, Joel. That resilience is the key. That's really great. And that's what we've heard from you guys before about Skyla, is that it's building resilience for sure. The last thing I have is, can you just remind us, I know we talked about this a couple of years ago, but specifically when there was the issue with the state last year and what holds can be done versus what can't, and then kind of how we navigated that together. What are your de-escalation techniques or trainings that you use for your SROs?
So each of our new SROs have to go through a 3-day basic SRO school. Most of that talks about de-escalation and dealing with that student population. But I would say moreover, our department now, not only as an SRO, but as a police officer in general, with some of the new mandates from the post board, we get de-escalation. I mean, any officer moving forward gets de-escalation training as an ongoing practice, right? One of the things that I would tell you is what I would ask of you from a school board, and when you think about are our SROs trained as they should be, I would tell you that anything that's going on with the training mandates or the talks about they need to do this or they need to do that, I promise you that we're already doing it. There was nothing in those mandates, nothing in the holds or no holds or anything that scared us, that said, wait a minute, this is going to be a huge change. All of that we were doing. It was all consistent with current practice. And so when we went into it, originally it came down to, for me, and Marty might have a different opinion, but for me it was just they wanted to hold us to two sets of rules, and we just needed to be held to one set of rules. And that's, once they got that figured out, it was good. So all of that training for our SROs and all of that training, they go into the police department. I mean, the police department and the police officers coming into the SRO program, if they didn't have that 3-day training, all right, they could come in and do the job, no problem, because they're already trained. That it just enhances kind of the student portion of it. And so we're really well trained. So.
Thank you. And it was a hard year, the year after George Floyd was murdered, when we had the discussion about SROs and some people calling for them not to be in schools. And so when the reason I ask that question every time you're here, because I want the most updated answer, because families will ask me.
Right.
Because there's that mistrust and because there's disproportionality in it, and then I'm able to say this is specifically what we do. We can't speak for the rest of Minnesota, but we can speak about us.
I've said this to Dr. Putnam and a lot of the administrative staff that I call friends here is, if you ever, and to the school board, if you have people that are not trusting that, or you have people that want to ask the hard questions, please give them my name and my phone, or they can call the PD. I'll give them my cell phone, I guess, but they certainly can call me, because I want to have those conversations, because I'm pretty passionate on from our side that we do such a good job that anybody that wants to tell us that we don't, I'm willing and wanting to have that conversation, because I believe in a simple adult two-way conversation of both explaining and listening, that I can make them feel comfortable with what we're doing.
Yeah.
So I encourage you, give them my name, because I will talk to every one of them.
I'll do that, and they'll probably say no because they don't trust you, and then I'll be the bridge, and
Yeah.
be like, how about next time? So,
And I'll meet you. If you want to be a bridge and they want to come to coffee, I don't drink it. It'll be Diet Mountain Dew, but I'm willing to go have that conversation
whatever energy
somewhere.
you need, man, go
Yeah.
for it. But just lastly, thanks for bringing dad energy into this job. I really see that in you, and I really appreciate that, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Al and then Monica.
Okay, I'll probably sound like I'm rambling because there's like a million things going through my head. I've been trying to figure out how to summarize it into something that sounds coherent, and I don't know if I can. First of all, thanks for everything you guys do. Thanks for keeping our community safe. I don't know that I can imagine a more difficult job than being a police officer. Every single time you get a call, you're going into trauma. There's some trauma involved in every single call. Different forms of trauma, but every single call is trauma. And so as a police officer, you're immersed in trauma all day, every day, year after year after year. And that has to be really wearing and difficult on a person. But every one of those calls has after effects in the community and in the schools. And when you go to a home and there's a trauma, the kids in that home carry that to school with them the next day. And when you have kids that are experiencing trauma, they can't learn, and we know that. I talk about Maslow's pyramid all the time, and if a kid is down in one of the bottom two levels of Maslow's pyramid, forget it, they're not going to learn a thing. They have to be up towards the top of that pyramid. And so therefore, we have lots of supports within the schools trying to lift kids up into those levels where they can actually learn. I'm glad that the SROs are in the school because and I'm glad that you said that our schools are kind of a respite, which means in a sense we're being somewhat successful. The kids feel like they can go into a school and they're not going to experience severe trauma while they're at school. And I know there's bullying and things like that that come into play, which maybe affect that some, but for the most part, when kids come into a school, they feel safe. And that's a really positive thing. And for you guys to be able to interact with kids in an environment where they feel safe, it's much more likely that you're going to come out with a good response and a good interaction with those kids. And they need those good interactions because, like you said, there's a lot of people in the community, a lot of families. Let me tell you, when you go to those calls that are involving a lot of trauma, when you drive away, a lot of people aren't saying, oh, that was great.
Right.
I'm so glad the cops came. And you never get calls where people are just, they want to say something really good to you and say how great their day is going. And it's just, I just can't imagine on that. But one of the things I was going to say is that you mentioned that a fair amount of time in schools as an SRO is spent counseling kids. And I wish that wasn't the case. I wish that we had more mental health professionals in the schools that could counsel those kids so that your energy and time could be spent on developing relationships with more kids and developing trust with the police department within the community. And I think a lot of the efforts, a lot of the things that are taught that you put up on the screen anyway, are symptoms. They're aimed at the symptoms of trauma. And not as much at building that relationship to avoid some of those symptoms or I don't know what I'm trying to say there, but overall, just thanks for what you do. It's not an easy,
You're welcome. I
it's not an
think
easy job.
when it comes to counseling, I think we call it counseling. I think we just call it BSing. I mean, we're bringing kids in and we're talking. The nice thing about us being in the school when it comes to some of the trauma that these kids get is we can talk to them about, hey, it was pretty dang scary when that door got kicked in, wasn't it? And yep, that was that's called a flashbang, and it's really super loud. And I'm sure that scared the heck out of you. So we get to talk to them at a level where I don't know that the student or that the teachers, or the therapists get to. So my goal is to take advantage of that as much as we can.
Yeah.
So.
And that kid, any kid that would experience that is gonna, the next day when they come to school, they're in no shape to learn.
Right.
They aren't. That's a fact. And so it's a really important relationship. And again, just thanks for doing it. We
Welcome.
need people like you.
Monica?
Thank you. Well, thank you very much for your work. This is, I didn't wanted to ask many questions because I'm online and it's not as fun. But you caught my attention when you were talking about a couple of things that I want you to say more about. So you said something about the issue are not the kids, the issue are the parents. And I'd like you to elaborate more on that. What do you mean? And more than what do you mean, not really ask you for your personal opinion about parenting in general, but what is your take as the position that you are in as an officer or in the schools with that? So kind of like, what's the point of the comment? Then the other part that I wanted to talk more about is trust, because you talk a lot about trust. The whole conversation with Natalie was about trust, and trust is a thing that I believe needs definition. I mean, I can trust my best friend and I might not lend her money, or I can lend you money and I not let you take care of my children, or I think that you're great at protecting people because you're an officer, but I don't think that you're great at educating my kids. So it's that part of the trust needs qualification, and I think that using it as a blanket term for a little bit of everything, well, it generates confusion. So I am a little bit confused about that. I would like you to say more about those two things.
All right. On the first one with the parenting, I think what I would say on the parenting is the parents that I come across are eager to help their children. And I think that they want to help, but the parents are also in situations in many of the families that I see that have their own barriers. There's a lot of barriers, whether it's economic barriers, whether it's, all of that goes with it. I think the parents need some help. And whether that's help from us, whether that's help from the school district, I don't expect the school district to do the parenting. As a parent of my own 5, I don't expect the school district to do that. However, I do want them to partner to give me a plan and to try to figure out what might be the best options for my kids to learn and learn at the highest level that they can. So when it comes to that question or the comments that I made, it all revolves around how can we do a better job both with the police department and with the schools to wrap the parents into the overall picture, because everything that I've seen since I've done this job is the kids can't do it without any of us. So I'll speak to that. On the trust thing, I understand where you're coming from, where trust gets kind of thrown out as a coverall to everything. But what I would tell you on trust is this. I want you to know and to trust me that I will do, and our officers and the City of St. Cloud within the SRO program will do everything in our power to fulfill those things that we've seen on our slideshow, whether it's safety, whether it's educating, whether it's mentoring, whether it's emergency management. We will give you our best effort. But you can also trust me, and parents can trust me, that if they're in an environment that I have to go into outside as a police officer and their kids need to be placed, they can trust that I will do what's best for their kids. And I'm very open about that. Trust is about being open and honest and having two-way conversations and having that information pass back and forth freely. So I don't say trust to use it as a blanket. You can trust in what I tell you, that I'll do everything that I can to get your kids to learn at the highest level and have the best time doing it. But you can also trust that when push comes to shove and your kids some kids need to be protected, I will absolutely do everything in my power to protect them, if that helps.
Thank you.
Joel, did you have a part 2 then?
We do, and I'll try and keep it as brief as possible. We've been here for a while. But we also just wanted to give a quick highlight of just the overall safety practices that are happening throughout all of our schools. I did something similar to this about a year ago to the day. And so just a couple of things that we have in place throughout all of our buildings. We do have a Raptor system implemented into all of our sites. This is an opportunity for us to just vet guests that come into the building. It includes a scan of a driver's license that goes through many databases, specifically looking for some sex offender type offenses that could be out there, and that allows us to really monitor who's coming through our doors. The active threat drills that we've highlighted here in the past, we have drill number 1 prepared for our staff already next week. That will happen during workshop week with some tabletop conversations at the building sites. Then we have 4 more that are planned throughout the course of the year, with each school partaking in those on the same day. We do that because of the legislation that's happened that asks us to make sure that we allow parents to opt out of those, so they have 24-hour notice. And we also put supports in place within our buildings for students that maybe experience things they didn't expect and need some extra support after the fact. The other cool partnership that we have going on right now is that next Thursday, we've got a really big kind of a team partnership happening with the St. Cloud Police Department and the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center, where we're going to do some SRO single officer training over at St. Cloud State. And we offered free to all of our staff, anyone that wants to come. And so Officer Kleinfelter and I are going to do 4 hours of tabletop conversation with any staff member that chooses to go in the morning. And then they'll get an opportunity to be a participant in the active training for our SROs in the afternoon. And when we provided that opportunity, last time I checked, we were just over 100 of our staff are volunteering their time to come be a part of that. So it's definitely something that our staff is looking to learn more about. Obviously, we have the physical and active observation throughout all of our sites, not just with our SROs, but with all of our administrators and staff throughout the buildings. It's a common expectation of principals with their staff at different times throughout the day. We have our controlled entrances at all of our sites except Apollo currently. That is the one school that does not have one. We recently got a school safety grant, and we are in the process of doing some mapping of all of our sites that will interface with the 911 center. So if someone called 911 on one of our sites, they'd be able to see exactly where in the building that call is coming from, which is really cool. Also through that grant, we're implementing the Say Something anonymous reporting system that is coming to us free through the Sandy Hook Foundation. Crisis Go has been something we've used in our system for quite a while. Typically, it's been used as a notification system for individuals that are deaf or hard of hearing. We are going to try to broaden that use into all other types of emergencies. It'll include the integration again of maps of the buildings. It'll have all of our students and all of our students and all of our staff implemented, and we're going to hopefully utilize it as an accounting system if something should happen where we need to evacuate a building, rather than have a printed paper copy of of a class roster, which is only as good as the day that you print it. Using that system is going to be very, very helpful. And then the other exciting piece, Officer Kleinfelter, Gary Ganji, myself, and some other school staff have been working on a behavioral threat assessment or safety assessment design that our schools can use when we have a specific student that may need some very targeted intervention. We're trying to develop something that we can use as a tool to streamline that process. And that is the end of what we have. If there's any further questions specifically on those 3 slides, we'd be happy to take them.
Did anybody have any other questions? Al?
From a law enforcement standpoint, what do you see as the benefits of a safe and secure entrance?
I just think it buys time, right? It's insurance policy. It buys, because if you're talking strictly from a safe and secure entrance, you can at least slow down people that are trying to get in the building. And we know, especially on the active threat side, that from once the crisis starts, literally we need to keep people safe, or people need to keep themselves safe for 5 to 8 minutes. If you can survive 8 minutes in an active threat nationally, you will live. So what we try to do with the safe and secure entrances, what I look at it is saying, okay, if we can buy a minute of that time before they can get in a building, or at least we have camera footage or we have information from who might be coming in, as violent as it could be, it buys us time and it gives us intel. I'm all about having a secure entrance.
That sounds like, I'm not being critical of it.
Nope.
Sounds like you're approaching it from an active shooter type
Yep.
of scenario.
Well, not totally,
And
but yes.
And I always go back and forth in my own head as to what are the real benefits of a safe and secure entrance. In those types of situations, I'm not so certain that the threat would choose that entrance as the most likely entrance to come through. But the other side of a safe and secure entrance has to do with not active shooter type situations, but say a non-custodial parent that may come and pick up a child
Absolutely.
that has to go through the office to get there. They're not going to shoot out a door to come through somewhere else in the building to get that kid. But they will go through the office, and then that forces them to go through the office. And so you gain a lot of safety there, and probably of the thousands or hundreds of thousands of schools around the country that have safe and secure entrances, there's probably been more safety created in those types of scenarios than actually active shooter type
There,
situations. But
no doubt.
I guess I kind of wanted to hear, and if there's any other situations where
I can tell you,
causing people to go through that.
anecdotally, is that the way I say it? Anyway, at Apollo last year, we had a guy that came in right through the door and was made it into the hallway. Not only was it a male that wasn't even supposed to be on site, had no reason to be there, but also we've had kids come in from other schools within the district and start roaming the halls looking to fight other kids or at least jaw jack with other kids. So, and then at North, we had a parent come in, even through the secured entrance. They let her in, but that parent just decided she was going to go try to find the girl that was there to fight her daughter and was going to take it in her own. So you're absolutely right about that. I mean, active threat stuff is on the extreme. I get that. And it does way more to just keep, you have to be able to monitor with the size of the school district and the number of students you have. It's imperative that you monitor who's coming in and who's going out of your schools. And that's, the secured entrance is by far the best way to do that.
Ed, A school like Tech, and I'm asking these questions because I won't get an opportunity to do it in any other format. A school like Tech, which was built with the idea of creating a safe and secure entrance, and really funneling all traffic coming and going from the building into one into the main entrance.
Yep.
So the parking lots are out there, the kids park out there, everybody parks out there, and they come in. Staff may come in different doors with key cards. But as far as the public itself, there's one place to park and come in.
Yep.
When you have a school set up like Apollo, the parking lot is off on the north side. The safe and secure entrance, or the main entrance to the building, is on the west side. And so you've got people coming and going from the north side parking lot all day long. So those doors are being open and closed and open and closed, open and closed, open and closed with who knows who's going in and out of those doors. Yet down here, we have this new safe and secure entrance that forces people to go through an office if this were to be built. How do you control that?
One of the things I would say at Apollo is it's a little bit of a give and take, right? You had the luxury with Tech to be able to build a brand new building.
Yep.
So you got to pick and choose kind of what you wanted. I am a graduate of Apollo, 1987, and I enjoyed the ability to go in and out of the modular system while I was attending there, and spent many days on a golf course. I did attend all my classes though, and graduated with a pretty good GPA. However, what I would tell you, Al, about that is I don't believe that because I'm at Apollo quite a bit, and I don't believe those doors because the student body can't use those doors, and they do a pretty good job of monitoring that. I would say like a door, is it 7, any Apollo, 7, or the door on the north side of the Commons, that door doesn't get used very much during the school day at all, because all the students and all the staff know to come in door 2 or door 1 right in the front by the capsule. So that door gets used a lot for events, right? So at events, it's a different ballgame. You're letting them in. Even at Tech, they're not going through the secured entrances for events at Tech either. So I would say that without going and totally revamping Apollo and really spending an elaborate amount of money to create that secondary secure entrance, I just don't know that it's worth that money, in my opinion, now, because I just don't see the use of it. So all of the foot traffic during the day that I see is generally going in and out the main doors.
Sorry, I know I'm hiding in the corner. But I just back to rewind. So just wanted to say thank you as the mental health guy in the jail and school board member. Just you guys do an amazing job, and I truly and genuinely believe that St. Cloud and Wade Park PD are a step ahead of the rest. When I go out other places in the community and I explain things like the CAT team and our SRO program, people are they're wowed sometimes. So thank you for all awesome work you're doing.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for sharing your time. Oh, Monica?
Yeah, thank you so much. Just a follow-up with what you just said. Did you say that it's not worth it to get the secure entrance for Apollo in the referendum?
Nope, that's not what I said. What I said was the secure entrance I believe, from what I know, the secure entrance you're asking for is for the front doors of Apollo. And that is exactly, the question that Al asked was referencing door 7, or the door on the north side of the activities door. And that door would be, I just don't see the usage during the day with students or staff when I'm there to represent that, I guess.
Got it, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, thank you guys very much for all your time as well.
You're welcome.
We appreciate you guys. Okay, moving on to our action items. First action item up tonight is the approval of the 24-25 student and family handbooks presented by Nikki Hansen, Assistant Superintendent of Pre-K through 5 Education.
Yeah, good evening, Chair Haas, Superintendent Putnam, and board members. Last session, we had the opportunity to review our proposed 24-25 handbook, and tonight the administration recommends the approval of the 24-25 handbook.
Any questions at all? Motion?
I would move that we approve the 24-25 handbooks. Are we doing high school, junior, and elementary together?
I believe so, yep.
Yes, elementary and secondary student and family handbooks.
That we approve the elementary and secondary student handbooks, 24-25.
Do you have a second?
Second.
I have a motion by Al, a second by Natalie. Any discussion at all? Zach, can you call vote?
Natalie Copeland,
Yes.
Heather Weems, Shannon Haas,
Yes.
Zach Dorholz, yes. Al Dahlgren,
Yes.
Monica Segura Schwartz.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And then Nikki Hansen presenting again. Next, we have the approval of the 2024-2025 weather-related e-learning days plan.
Yes. Good evening again, Chair Haas, Superintendent Putnam, and board members. In an effort to continue student learning in the event of weather-related school closings, we will continue using e-learning days during the 24-25 school year for inclement weather closings pursuant to Minnesota Statute 120A 414. As circumstances allow this year, the first inclement weather day will be a school closing day or a traditional snow day. The second through sixth inclement weather closing will be e-learning days. And if Mother Nature brings us more inclement weather, days 7 and 8 will also be school closing days. Any inclement weather days following these 8 days will be makeup days determined by the superintendent in consultation with the school board. Decisions made for our makeup day structure were in partnership with the St. Cloud Area Education Association as well as our surrounding districts, and the lost productivity cost of a school closing or traditional snow day is $570,000 for our school district. During a weather-related e-learning day, students and licensed staff will have the following expectations. Preschool students will access and complete a series of pre-assigned activities that will be made available to students in-home packets and will also be accessible online. Students in grades K-5 will access assessments on student devices via Seesaw, or if devices were not sent home, they will complete a series of pre-assigned learning activities that are made available to students through in-home packets and are also accessible on our website. Licensed staff will post learning activities on Seesaw by 9 a.m. on the day of an e-learning day. Students in grades 6 through 12 will access assignments on student devices via Schoology. Licensed staff will post learning activities on Schoology by 10 a.m. on the day of an e-learning day. Licensed staff members will be available during student contact hours to answer student questions and provide guidance through email, Seesaw, and Schoology platforms. Accommodations for students who receive special education and EL services will also be provided virtually. Licensed staff who are unable to teach on an e-learning day due to a discretionary day, illness, or medical appointment for themselves or a family member, or other absence reason, must request time off in Skyward and post the learning activity for the day on the learning management system in lieu of posting subplans. In addition, staff should email the principal and lead secretary so that they are made aware that the employee will not be made available to students or parents during these contact hours. Licensed staff who are on duty during e-learning days must be in service during their regular teaching day and must complete these following expectations. Early childhood staff will make a plan for e-learning days with their site administrator or supervisor. K-5 licensed staff will post the activities on Seesaw by 9 a.m. on the day of the e-learning day, and 6 through 12 licensed staff will post e-learning activities by 10 a.m. through Schoology. Licensed staff must be available during the day and be able to be contacted by email, direct school phone message, and/or CSAR Schoology platforms to answer and assist students and parents. Time not engaged in posting lessons or in direct contact with students may be used for planning and preparation time. Each classroom teacher who serves students is responsible for posting lessons, grading, and completing attendance on e-learning days. Non-instructional licensed staff, including counselors, school psychologists, social workers, nurses, SLPs, etc., will make a plan with their supervisor for their work on their e-learning day. Part-time contract teachers will be available during their regular scheduled hours. In the event of an e-learning day for non-licensed staff and 10-month employees who will not report to work on site will work as follows. Staff who can work effectively from home may do so with the pre-approval from their supervisor. Examples of these positions include clerical, head cooks, BRS, BTI, and mental health support staff. Non-licensed staff who do not support instruction, whose regular work cannot be performed at home, shall receive full pay for the e-learning day. Examples of these positions include bus drivers, nutritional services, transportation paraeducators, door monitors, and CSOs. In the event of an e-learning day for 12-month non-licensed staff who can report to work safely may do so. Examples of these positions would include our custodians and our engineers. 12-month non-licensed staff who can work from home may do so with the approval of their supervisor. Examples of these employee groups could include clerical or our non-represented 12-month staff. Staff who cannot report to work and whose work cannot be performed at home shall receive full pay for the e-learning day. And employees who choose not to work from home and in a snow or ice e-closing day may use cumulative leave or other paid leave time to make up for any hours lost. That is the extent of our student, our staff, and our non-licensed staff expectations with our e-learning day, as well as our proposed platform for what we will use for e-learning days due to weather-related closings this school year. And administration is recommending the approval of these guidelines.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions or comments? And again, this is an action item. Al, go ahead.
I have some comments. It wouldn't be me if I didn't say something. So I pulled up the statutes from 2017 and 2023. The statute just got changed this year from what it was. And our legislature inserted a word into this statute. The 2017 said a school board may adopt an e-learning day plan after consulting with the exclusive representative of the teachers. In 2023, it said a school board may adopt an e-learning day plan after meeting and negotiating with the exclusive representative of the teachers. That one word is a decision by some representative. I don't know who introduced the legislation. I wish that I knew that. But that introduction of that word is causing school districts all over the state to change their e-learning days from e-learning days to snow days. And at a cost in our district of $570. And in our school district, it costs $570,000 per day in lost instruction to change from an e-learning day where there's at least some learning going on to a snow day. And in the old plan, we didn't lose those until after the 5th day, because that was the maximum that you could do with the legislature. We invested millions of dollars into devices and giving in-home internet for students and things so that they were able to learn at home. A lot of that came out of the pandemic, not out of snow days. But after that investment was made, it made it very easy for us to convert snow days into e-learning days, and we were able to get some instruction on those first snow days. We just spent $900,000 in our contracts to add 15 minutes to the school day. That's, I think, was it 900 or was it more than 900? It could have been more than 900. But anyway, we added time to the contract, and now we're giving half of it back in the first snow day, and we're giving the other half back in the second snow day. So we're right back to where we started as far as time that we're buying back, and all due to some legislator that wanted to get in bed with the Education Minnesota and give another day off. And we romanticize snow days, and I know that back when I was in school, I loved it when it snowed and I didn't have to go to school for the day, but hey, we've come a long way, and we need educational time. We need more time to teach our students. We know that, we talk about it all the time, and now we're just, due to our legislature, handing back more time off, and I just feel that that piece of it is wrong. I don't know. The legislature has a lot of things to prioritize over snow days. Maybe look at the special ed cross subsidy, maybe look at the English language learner cross subsidy, maybe start looking at some of that stuff and not worry about snow days quite so much. But that's my 2 cents. I will probably vote against this, not because I want it to fail. I think that, Lori and her team did a good job of negotiating with our union. We're doing one at the beginning and one at the end, not 2 at the beginning. But I'm doing it in protest to whoever that legislator is. I want to make sure that in my very little way and with the few people that watch this meeting, I can make it very apparent that the cost of that vote in our district was $500,000 up to $1 million. And statewide, you're talking hundreds of millions of dollars so that we can have a snow day, when we've spent hundreds of millions of dollars to avoid having snow days.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, looking for a motion to approve the 2024-2025 weather-related e-learning days plan.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Okay, I have a motion by Natalie and a second by Heather. Zach, can you call vote?
Heather Weems,
Yes.
Monica Segura Schwartz,
Well, yes.
Natalie Copeland,
Yes.
Al Dahlgren,
No.
Zach Dorholz, yes. Shannon Haas.
Yes. Okay, thank you. One more action item tonight. We have the approval of the proposed resolutions for MSBA Delegate Conference presented by Board Member Al Dahlgren.
So again, we've got 3 different resolutions that we're going to be discussing. The first one having to do with artificial intelligence and asking the legislature. I'm just going to turn it over to you, Lori, so that you can talk about the artificial intelligence resolution.
Thank you. So this is, we still have to remove that one first sentence where you asked to have a Minnesota Education Generative AI allowance. That will be removed. So if you approve it, please know you would be approving it without that, because I forgot to have that done. So my apologies to this board. Barring that piece, this resolution calls for a comprehensive review and redesign of the Minnesota State Content Standards to include significant one-time funding to support this major revision to account for the competencies required to thrive in an AI-enhanced society and world. So there's some whereases to set the stage that we reviewed last time, and then we call upon the legislature to fund and support MDE with this significant comprehensive review, to advocate for the development of new courses and programs that address emerging fields of work and the arriving technologies that will impact society, really focusing on areas, and I think it's important to just name them for our public, so I'm going to in case they can't see it: technology and engineering, social sciences, creative arts, entrepreneurship and business. Sometimes sometimes I think people think we're just talking about coding, but that's not at all the case, right? Our students are going to need all of these to be proficient in all of these knowledge areas to thrive in the future workforce. And then also, any new learning for students comes with significant learning for staff. So to provide some funding and time for the required professional development, and to do all this work in partnership with local businesses, industries, and higher education to be sure that we're not working in isolation, but that as a state, we're really working together to prepare all of our students for the future of the Minnesota workforce.
Do you want to do one and then?
No, I just want to say that I talked to Denise Dietrich at the School Boards Association, and they're very excited about this one. So I imagine this is going to get a positive recommendation from them at the conference.
Do you want to vote for this one now? Or
Yeah, I would do them.
Okay. Can you read the title again? What are we calling that one?
Absolutely. This is Resolution 2024-1, Redesigning Education for the Age of AI.
Yes, please.
I was just noticing that the Alliance is also down below as well. Yeah, so just to remove those. Thank you, Dr. Putnam.
Okay, looking for a motion then?
Second.
Motion by Natalie, second by Al. Any further discussion?
Can I just say, when those two changes are made, can you have Jan, could you please forward a copy of that to Denise Dietrich at the Minnesota School Boards Association?
Zach, can you call vote?
Ken. Zach Dorholz, yes. Shannon Haas?
Yes.
Heather Weems?
Yes.
Monica Segura-Schwartz?
Yes.
Natalie Copeland?
Yes.
Al Dahlgren?
Yes.
Okay, next one.
The next resolution had to do with legislative action increasing the legislative per pupil funding limit, and no, it had to do with increasing the legislative per pupil funding limit for lease levy, right? Yeah, so we need to change that.
So we need to
in the
change the
title.
wording, yeah.
And Amy, I'm going to let you talk about it.
Yes, so, and this is another one where we had talked at the last meeting about whether or not we wanted that $266 that we had put in was sort of an arbitrary number. And so we had talked somewhat about leaving that open-ended, just to say significantly increase the lease levy authority. That 266 was taking what it's at today and just adjusting it by the per pupil formula allowance increase over the years. But construction inflationary costs have increased obviously significantly higher than what our funding increases have been. So we can revise that to take out the dollar amount. And part of the backstory on this is just the fact that it's been the same dollar amount for about 10 years. And that lease levy authority is really our only option as a district if enrollment increases or there's drastic shifts and we need to do an addition or lease space to provide instructional facilities outside of going for a referendum. And so that's kind of the background on this one.
There are some facilities that we lease and we plan to continue leasing. We're not going to build, say, a hockey arena. The hockey program needs, both boys and girls needs space.
Right. And the current cap is clearly sufficient to cover what we have for annual operating leases, at least for our district. Those are a lot smaller in terms of the dollar amounts. And those are existing leases. And so those don't increase significantly year over year. But the bigger cost would be if all of a sudden we needed to add an elementary school or add an addition or lease space because our elementary schools are all at capacity. We as a district are very close to that lease levy cap and really would have no option that's solely within our control outside of going to voters for a referendum.
Anybody have any questions or comments on this? looking for a motion to approve this, and we're changing the title on there. Oh, Monica?
Yep.
Oh, I have a motion by Monica. Do I have a second?
Second.
And I have a second by Al. Any further questions? Were you? Or taking the amount out and just including the word significant?
Yeah, and School Boards Association may have some input on that, on what they
Fair.
would
Yeah.
like to see. I know when I talked to Denise about this one, she had mentioned that she was going to go back and check to see exactly what they already had. She thought that they may have had some things within their legislative platform that dealt with lease levy, but this could be different enough. So I'll still bring it, but
Yep. Sounds good. Okay, Zach, can you call a vote again on this one?
Shannon Haas?
Yes.
Heather Weems?
Yes.
Monica Segura Schwartz?
Yes.
Natalie Copeland?
Yes.
Al Dahlgren?
yes.
Zach Dorholtz, yes.
Okay, last one.
Okay, the last one, I brought a paper copy and left it on your desk there. And I also brought you a copy of the Office of Legislative Auditors Evaluation Report Summary. I highlighted two spots on here. One, on the second page, is when compared to district schools with similar demographic, charter schools generally did not perform as well on the 2007 MCA2 exams. Specifically, only 15% of charter schools performed better on the MCA exams than district schools with similar demographics. In our district, it's 100% performed poorer than us. And more than half of the comparable 40% performance. This relates to the accountability piece we were talking to. And in the OLA report, now, and Lori, I want to open this up more for discussion. It's not going to be me telling you what I'm putting in here. I have questions. As far as charter schools are concerned, when I was talking to Denise, we actually had a little confusion on the state or federal requirements for school improvement plans. Do they apply to charter schools or do they not apply to charter schools? And if you don't know, that's okay too. And I'm wondering if Denise felt that school improvement plans applied. And I think in this OLA report, it's saying that school improvement plans apply, but it says it's really muddled up as far as who they communicate with and how they communicate. And the second thing that I highlighted in here talked about charter school sponsors, and in addition to authorizing new charter schools, sponsors must monitor their performance. However, some sponsors do not fulfill their responsibility, leading to gaps in charter school oversight. One sponsor we visited did not know the charter school she sponsors had not made AYP in the previous year. Another sponsor reviews his charter school's annual report, but otherwise does not monitor the academic or financial performance of the schools. And so the OLA report, although I believe the school improvement plans are federal, right? Sorry. I'm gathering.
They can be, if you're an identified school district under Every Student Succeeds Act,
Yep.
then yes, you are required to post those on your website. Yeah. School improvement plan.
Okay.
There, yes, because charters are
under the public school domain.
Yep, and that's what Denise was saying too. But the question then becomes, with the oversight of the schools, who becomes responsible? And if the sponsors of the charters aren't monitoring it, and I think as charter schools have become bigger and more, let's say the word for-profit type charter schools, I'm not so sure that they're as involved in the day-to-day of those schools. But the OLA was very critical of the oversight of charter schools because of the lack of definition or lack of direction as to whose responsibility it is to oversee those schools. In our resolution that we brought forward last year, we said, and this was the one that made it to the final in the delegate assembly, was, be it resolved that MSBA urges the legislature to hold charter schools to a standard of student outcome performance at least equal to the public school district in which they are located. Charter schools whose performance meets or exceeds the local district should be allowed to thrive. Charters underperforming should be placed on school improvement plans and ultimately closed if results do not improve. That was what we brought forth last year. MSBA recommended voting. MSBA's recommendation was no, we're not going to support this one. And that was because of the fact that the process for school improvement plans is in place for charter schools, but there's a very confusing apparatus of how to support it. So I'm still mixed on this, whether we should bring something or not. I still think it's a good idea to bring something so that we can keep this front and center. But how we would want to word it, I'm open for discussion on that, completely open.
Okay, anybody have any thoughts on this? Go ahead, Monica.
You say Monica?
Yep. Yes.
Okay. What I wanted to suggest is maybe if we can get a working group to do this, because I really appreciate the research and the work that Al has been doing on his own. But I don't know that we're going to get to any point within a work session in a board meeting unless we really get a chunk of time for doing this. I think I like some parts of what you have there. I just saw you scrolling down, or the person that was scrolling down to it, like, wow, this is a lot. And I recommend a resolution that has that much content in it because I don't think that anybody will read it. So I think that it needs to be tweaked. And I also don't think that I understand, like as you were saying, like you were having some conversations with people about what is covered, what are really the rules for us and for the charter school. And so I'm not sure that we are understanding, or that I at least, I am understanding how is that we are competing. And is that how is that we need to level the field? No, it's not completely clear for me. So I guess that's why I wanted to suggest that maybe we think about having a working group for that, developing a committee. And I don't know if that's going to take a long time, but maybe just if we do that might take us somewhere.
My response to that, Monica, is if we want to do that, then we're not bringing it this year. because we don't have that kind of time. We have about, the very latest I think we could approve a resolution would be at the next meeting.
I see.
So for this year, if you want to bring it out to 2025, December of 2025, then it could be done. Part of where I'm really confused is, in this is, again, I want to bring something forward to keep the subject fresh and current, and to keep some conversation going on it. But the resolution that was approved last year was asking the legislature to review the results of the OLA report that's right in front of you here, and to come up with a plan, and to put in place those pieces that are relevant. And if you look at the key recommendations, a lot of those key recommendations are what we're talking about right now.
Is this the most recent OLA report?
Yes.
So
They've done,
15 years ago, 16 years ago.
they've done nothing, they've done absolutely
still working
nothing
off of-
with the OLA report.
Yeah, Allied, or the group, I would be supportive of taking something forward. Just, it's best practice on behalf of students and taxpayers. The fact that it's the last report of which a recommendation, a resolution addresses is 16 years old is just poor practice. And I think it's just in our best interest for students, for the state, to hold people accountable for holding schools accountable. And schools equally accountable when they're being funded or detracting from public schools.
I wonder if we could bring something forward that would just say that we keep
We
it
want them to
really.
address the OLA report?
No, but keep it, they have, it's in MSBA's legislative platform right now,
Yep.
that they want to ask the legislature to revisit this report and hold schools accountable. But would it be in our interest to just bring something as simple as a resolution stating that we want the legislature to examine, without going to the OLA report, to examine the accountability of charter schools and develop a plan, or to examine and develop a plan for holding charter schools accountable. And just leave it at that. And we could always reference in there again at the OLA report. Lori, go ahead.
I like where you're going. I think would have to say, would have to ask the legislator, kind of like what we did with the AI, to fund, right? Because they can't do the study, but they can fund the study. So do they direct MDE, right? Provide the funding to MDE to do the study, or I don't know who directs the OLA, right? Governor, maybe, I don't know. But that would be is that a separate, if we said that,
To direct the funding to,
MDE? Like we did with the Gen AI one?
Say where?
yeah, I'm just thinking how.
We don't really have to say where to direct the funding. We just ask for the study, right?
Auditor's office, by the way.
The auditor's office? So, but that was the old one, right? The old one directs
one.
the OLA.
So our past resolution asked the legislature to revisit the 2008 report,
Right.
okay?
So could we now say, ask the legislature to direct funding to a task force led by MDE to,
Or to revise.
correct, yeah.
To study and revise the 2008?
Yeah.
I like it.
I like it, yeah.
Can I, go ahead.
I like it too. I don't like to say, I don't need to say anymore. I don't like this one. I will say more. Again, like I said last time, really uncomfortable tying student performance outcomes to any of this right now because it's so, that's one of the things, but it's so much more vast than that as well. And I really like that MSBA already is saying, yeah, let's look at this 2008 ridiculousness, but I like your idea, Lori, of having the funding as well. I would definitely support that. I wouldn't support bringing this one, the number 10.
Heather?
So if we tell them to fund it, I guess my question is, we have a report from 2008 that was funded and done, and
act.
and hasn't been acted on.
No.
So is there a next component? I mean, it's not just about funding it and studying it. It still goes back to develop a plan or respond in some way to the accountability piece of it. Because you can fund a plan and it can sit on or you can fund a study that sits on a shelf like we have here. But what is the piece of it that funds a study, identifies the process, and then creates action?
Well, I guess it's one thing at a time. The next resolution will be just get it off the shelf.
Fund something to make people do their jobs.
Well, there's, I mean, there are a number of things that they do that are, they start the study and then they stop because they found out how expensive it was going to be, except the one on snow days. But it's like Pawlenty. Back during the Pawlenty administration, they started a study to figure out what it would actually cost to educate students to state standards. And it turned out that it was going to cost a whole lot more than they wanted to spend. So they suspended the study and refused to take any kind of action on it. And this is kind of the same thing. I think it may not be as much the money here as in 2008, especially when charter schools were first they were really just kind of starting to gain some momentum. I think that from a school choice standpoint, it probably was very difficult to move forward on anything that was going to be interfering with charter schools. But we're in a different age right now where charter schools have become 40% of the Metro District's students open enrolling out into charter schools. And so you've got 40% of the students in the metro area attending schools that have less accountability. And there's something really wrong with that. We're not dealing with a couple thousand students out of the Minneapolis School District. We're dealing with tens of thousands of students in the Minneapolis School District. We have 5 charters here, looking at maybe 7. It's becoming a bigger and bigger piece of our school of our community, and yet the accountability still isn't there. And so the world has changed since 2008.
Natalie?
As I'm looking at the major findings and key recommendations, I just know from my time on a charter school board that some of these have already been dealt with and some haven't. So I think that's, like it used to be that teachers had to comprise a majority of the charter school board, but it isn't that way anymore. And so, like, you just look at this and you say, okay, well, which one of these are still the recommendations and the findings that haven't been dealt with, and then deal with those. That would at least get us somewhere. So that's, I think, that this needs to be looked at, and it needs to be looked at by someone who understands what has already been changed versus what hasn't already.
Well, that would be our request, to fund a new study and revise the 2008 OLA report.
Yeah.
Right?
That's great. Heather?
Yeah, I was just going to say to fund the revision or updating the OLA report related to charter schools, including academic and financial implications to students and public schools, and then set forth an accountability plan.
Which is what it says should be done right here in bold, so.
A couple of other things just from Donna are that the state needs a tool to revoke sponsors, and the state needs the ability to set expectations for sponsors. And that would be two things that could be included.
Is that the authorizer? Is that what we're talking
The
about? Is
authorizers,
authorizers?
yeah.
Yep.
So I think there's probably some work that should be done, and maybe instead of asking, so again, we're asking the School Boards Association to ask MDE. That's what this is about. So, not to ask MDE, to ask the legislature. And so instead of saying, hey, legislature, we want you to go back and review the 2008 charter school OLA report and make the needed changes, we're saying, hey, legislature, we want you to fund a study and revise the 2008 legislative or the OLA report, and then act on, do we want to include that and just say, and then act on the
Act on accountability.
on the accountability or the recommended accountability revisions? Why not, huh?
That's something we could do between now and next meeting and then vote on it, because that's our last time to vote on it. Is next meeting before you need to have it, Al? Is that what you're saying? Maybe, if you're writing that, or whoever's writing that, if we could get, if this is the right thing to do, get a copy beforehand to review it, so we know how to talk about it once we're coming to the meeting.
Yep, I can have Lori send that out. I can't send it out, but
Okay. And then we'll get that added to the agenda for our next.
but I have in my great notes here, it just says, allocate funding to study and revise the 2008 OLA report and act on the accountability recommendations.
Just added really big bold letters.
Big font.
So be it resolved that MSBA urges the legislature to allocate funding to study and revise the 2008 OLA report and act on the accountability recommendations.
And it's MDE that.
And act on the revised accountability recommendations.
Okay.
Well, is it MDE?
No, it's
We're
the
asking the
auditor's
leg-
office. We're
The
asking
auditor's
the
office.
auditors,
Okay.
so,
OLA is the auditor's office.
correct, and they're the ones who did the
MDE would-
report. They're the ones who did the report, they're the ones who would do the report again.
Yep.
And that language
And then
works.
the legislature would act on the accountability recommendations.
Yeah, it would be a bill.
And then MDE would
directing them
implement
to-
those.
Yeah, that would be the last step.
So act on and implement the accountability recommendations.
Okay.
We got that verbatim? Okay. And do you want to, well, I gave you both these, right? I think in the background section, I think that we should have something similar, and I can either I can write it or you can, but in here we state, we kind of go into how it affects the St. Cloud School District, and especially how we're directly affected by charter school performance using MCA test scores. Local charter schools are performing on average more than a 10-point deficit. And when students who attend K-8, 6 or 8 charter schools and then enroll in the St. Cloud secondary schools, they come to us significantly behind. We also see a substantial number of students who come back to our district from charter schools every year. the St. Cloud Area School District incurs additional costs, including remedial education, which I know remedial isn't really the word that we're supposed to use, to bring these students up to to the level of their peers. I think there's something of that has to be in there to say why we're asking for this. We're not just asking for charter schools. There's actually a cost to us. So, and that's, again, that's right at the bottom
I
of this
have a
first.
comment about that.
Go ahead, Monica.
So one thing about the choice, which yes, charter schools provide a choice, that we could go deeper into it. It's not really a choice for every student, because if they don't have the same requirements or the same programs that we need to have for EL students, for example, or disability students, or if they don't suffer about those kind of things, that they're really not being a choice for those students. So I think that that's a problem of equity of charter schools per se. And then we are creating segregation by having those schools not having all those supports. I don't know if there's anything that we can say about that, or that we can, maybe not for this legislation, but maybe we can dig deeper on that.
We provide, we provide special education services, don't we, for? We don't? No, that's right, they charter schools do, but we do for parochial schools. Yeah.
But that's my point. If we get kids that that are English learners go to charter school because they believe it's better, and then they come back to us because they didn't have the support that they needed. Well, that is segregation. That is an issue of those schools not providing those. They're not held to the same standards that we are.
But
That's my
Right.
hypothesis.
and that costs us. I mean, they come back to us not learning at the level that they should be learning, or they haven't learned at the level that they should be learning, and so therefore we have catch up to do with them, and we have to provide additional resources to try to catch those kids up.
This is where it gets dicey for me, because my kids came from charter schools into public school. Sorry, they're both public, charter into St. Cloud schools, and they weren't behind. So, and I'm not bragging on my kids, I'm just saying, like, that's not true across the board. MCA scores, I totally get that. So I think that's where, when we say too much about this, it's then if someone could poke a hole in what we say, I don't want that to happen. That's why I'm a big proponent of this 50,000 foot, like, study the study and update it and then provide accountability. And because once we get into the weeds, it gets anecdotal. They'll just say that my kids came from charter schools of 742 because there wasn't the supports that were needed. So
Right,
that's
right, but
exactly true.
But when you say anecdotal, I want to say that there's nothing more anecdotal than saying that your kids were fine. That's as anecdotal as you can get. And I'm saying more on average, when charter schools are performing at more than 10 points deficit to the St. Cloud School District, when those kids come to the school district, on average, they're behind. On average. And that's what I'm getting at, and then therefore, not just me, that's what this was getting at. Of course, there's exceptions. And, and being a school board member, your kids would probably be in a position where they'd get more support
Yeah,
at
I'm
home
not
than the
talking
other.
about schools that didn't.
So,
They're full of privilege.
Okay, so we'll bring this back. Thank you for all the work.
yeah, we'll bring this one back. So the two passed.
Yes.
So Jan, actually, if you could forward a copy of those two to Denise. And we should include in them a paragraph for Jan, I forwarded to you the entire book from last year. And in each of our resolutions, it stated that the resolution was passed by the St. Cloud School Board in a whatever the vote was. And that paragraph needs to be in each one of these also, because the resolutions have to be passed by a school board. They can't be individual.
All right, thanks for all that work. Okay, then on to something really, really exciting. We have the second reading for proposed revised board policy 704, which is the development and maintenance of an inventory of fixed assets and fixed asset accounting system, presented by Amy Scallerud, Executive Director of Finance and Business Services.
It has to get added to the board meeting portion, not the work session.
All right. Good evening, Chair Hawes, Superintendent Putnam, members of the board. This is the second reading of the fixed asset policy that we went over at the last meeting. There were no changes from the first reading. And again, the only change is to add the paragraph talking about what our capitalization thresholds that we use for audit purposes are.
Any questions at all? All right, coming back on the consent agenda. Thanks. All right, moving on to reports. We have superintendent's report presented.
Thank you, Chair Haas, members of the board, cabinet, and our friends listening from home. Just wanted to give a couple updates on where we're at as we're heading into the school year. Teachers come back, licensed staff come back on Monday. Hard to believe, and our students get to come back the next week, so we're really excited about that. In terms of staffing, we are in amazing shape thanks to the hard work of all the folks sitting here and our human resources and special education teams. We are down to only needing 2 special education teachers, which is just brilliant given the statewide shortage. Still needing a few itinerant staff, so if anyone's listening, we are still looking for some speech language and school psychologist time. In terms of non-licensed staff, we are doing equally as well. We only have 8 para openings, which is incredible. And we have interviews scheduled over the upcoming days that would fill, I believe, 6 of those 8 positions if they're all successful candidates. Our bus drivers are fully staffed, and we have 5 openings in our nutrition team. So looking still for folks to join us there. We are expanding the Welcome Center hours. It began today. So we know that we still have some families who have, we suspect, still need to enroll. And then we know from our census data that there are still some families out there that we could capture. And so this evening and whenever they are not busy, our Welcome Center staff, under the direction of Adam and Bashar, are going through the census data and calling all those families. They have been called once before in the spring by thanks to Nikki and our elementary principal team, but we're doing a second pass. But we do have extended hours this evening. We just closed at 8, but tomorrow, Thursday, 8:22, from 4 to 8, Tuesday, 8:27, also from 4 to 8, and Wednesday, 8:28, from 4 to 8. And then we are open this Saturday from 9 to 1, and next Saturday from 9 to 1. So again, tomorrow night, Tuesday, Wednesday of next week, and then both Saturdays. So we encourage our families to come on in and get registered so we can have our schools and our classrooms fully ready for our students when they come the week following. I also want to celebrate, we have some key celebrations. Marin Wagner was named, she's a Kennedy art teacher. She was named the Rookie Art Educator of the Year for the whole state. So congratulations to Marin. And welcome visits were a huge success. For anybody who is listening who doesn't know, welcome visits were in our entire district leadership team and some of our equity team go to visit all of the new students in our school district, so all of our kindergartners, and then anybody newly enrolled in grades 1 through 12. We visited 1,130 students' homes. So that's a lot and very exciting. And then 95% of the staff who completed the survey we're switching on to New Teacher Academy now, my apologies. So we just welcome new teachers, and then all of our special education staff, non-licensed staff, we welcome back today. And then 95% of our staff who completed the survey said they felt a sense of welcoming and belonging. And some of the feedback that we got was this was the best onboarding I've ever experienced. And that was from somebody who has been in multiple districts. And that was, that sentiment was repeated multiple times. So I want to say a sincere thank you to our leaders, many of whom are also not in this room, our directors and our coordinators who made that possible. So my last thing that I want to just share, because I thought this is amazing, is, as you know, we have a tight partnership with the United Way of Central Minnesota. And through their hard work to get grants, and then the hard work of our staff to implement, we have extended programming during the summer and after school. So for 742 from the last year, so from June 1, 2023 to May 31, 2024, we had 250,000 additional learning hours beyond the school day. Which is just phenomenal. So that equates to 8,000 days of learning that happened. And the unduplicated count of participants is 1,822 of our students. So just an incredible testament and data, real hard data, right? That shows what real committed partnership looks like and how that can impact our students. So thank you to the United Way, and thank you to our staff that makes that happen.
Thank you. Then we have the Board of Education Standing Committee reports. Achievement, Integration, and Equity Committee, Chair Natalie Copeland.
Thank you, Chair Haas. We met this morning. We planned our meeting topics for the 24-25 school year. We're ongoing, talking about our portrait of a 742 graduate, moving into timeline and action stage on that. And then we also talked about, we were going to talk about 23-24 discipline data, but we moved that to September. So that's what we plan to talk about on that time. And then as well, we talked about something else that I was going to say. Let me get to my email. Yes, okay. We were talking a lot about the Captivate media findings that Dr. Putnam sent out to us as a board, and we are wanting to, and this might just land under future board agenda topics, but we are desiring for a board topic work session to be around that, the PR Captivate media findings, and how we can join with the leadership team in knowing what we should and would love to say about our wonderful district.
All right, thank you. And then Board Finance and Audit Committee, Chair Al Dahlgren.
Yeah, we met last week. And a real short report, but the committee discussed a number of items related to a potential future referendum for Apollo High School, including costs to run a standalone election. Talked about some different options, and that'll all be coming to the board for approval at some point here in November to make those decisions. So there were really no decisions made. Didn't talk much about the remodel or anything like that. Talked a little bit about some areas of the school, but not a long discussion on that. It was mainly about the referendum. So that's it. It was a short meeting and a short report.
All right, thank you. Lastly, we have future agenda items. The September 4th board meeting work session topics will include the summer programming summary, the summer project status report, innovation and instruction roadmap, schools updates, policy readings, and then the third MSB resolution that we're going to add. At this time, does any board member wish to suggest a future agenda item? Natalie, I heard yours. Anybody else? All right. That was everything on our agenda. Looking for a motion to adjourn. Thank you. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? All right, meeting is
Aye.
adjourned. Thanks, Monica. 8:51 PM. Thank you for watching. We'll be back Wednesday, September 4th.
Thank you for having me here. Bye-bye.
Bye, Monica.
Monica probably got that at 6.
Thank you very, very much.